My eyes crack open as I look around, emerging from my stupor. The sounds of medical equipment surround me, a cold burst of air beginning to sting my eyelids as I struggled to adjust to the light. I peer at my hands, bound by leather straps affixed to the bed. The inability to move, combining with the unfamiliarity of my surroundings, caused my heart rate to skyrocket. My vitals reflect the stress of the situation, and I began to panic. I tugged and pulled on my restraints, violently screaming for help, just hoping someone would tell me what had happened. A nurse hastily rounds the corner, his eyes locking onto mine. He explains my circumstances, that I'd been in an accident, but that I was expected to make a full recovery. I breathed a sigh of relief before asking him why I had been bound to the bed. He apologized for the harsh treatment, going on to explain that I'd been trying to pull out my feeding tube in the days prior. He unbuckled the first strap as another nurse walked in. I was immediately amazed by the striking similarity between the two men. They had the same face, they moved the same way, and they were even the same height. Puzzled, I asked if they were related, citing all of their shared features as the last strap came off of my wrist. Both of the men laughed, but they said they had never heard that before. As I confusingly smiled at their comments, another nurse walked by. He looked the same too. A noticeable expression of bewilderment took over my facial features. One of the men told me they'd keep the restraints off, since they'd already taken out my tubes. A beep came in from the radio on his hip. He took hold of it and alerted his partner that it was time to make their usual rounds. "Dinner should be coming soon, ma'am. Let us know if you need anything else." The other nurse chimed in as they walked towards the exit. "Today is meatloaf day. Don't expect too much. This place ain't heaven after all." The men chuckled as they closed the door. I laid back in my hospital bed, trying to recall the events that had led to me being here. I inspected my body, looking for any signs of damage, but I couldn't figure it out. I made a mental note to get the doctor's rundown as soon as possible. I couldn't imagine what kind of accident I'd been in if I felt this pristine. With my restraints off, I moved myself to the side of the bed. My legs felt like they were asleep, but after I practiced moving my toes for a few minutes, I began to regain feeling. I lightly hopped off the bed, holding onto the railing for support as I started to walk. I made my way to the door, looking out of the small glass rectangle as I looked for context clues as to where the hospital was. The realization that my family wasn't there suddenly hit me. I turned back, searching for my phone, but it was nowhere to be found. Now returning to the window, I didn't see anyone around. I slowly turned the handle on the door, walking out of my room and into the long stretching hallway. The door was left open in the room next to mine. I looked inside, where an older woman was staring at me. Her eyes followed me just as I moved by. I said hello, but she just kept staring in an awkward silence. I jumped as the double doors at the end of the hall swung open, a cart with food trays emerging, the similar-looking nurses parking it next to the first room. They hadn't spotted me yet, so I nonchalantly walked back into my room, closing the door and climbing back into bed. The underwhelming tray of hospital food was handed to me by one of the staff. "The doctor should be coming to make his judgment soon. You're looking a lot better. He might recommend you for release." I thanked the man for the food, despite a strange feeling forming in my stomach. The plate doesn't look particularly appetizing, but I was so hungry, I scarfed it all down within minutes. Just moments after I set the empty tray aside, I see a man approach my door, turning the handle and coming inside. He didn't look like the other members of their staff. His stance was perfect, his eyes sparkled, and he had the face of an angel. He wore a solid white medical coat, almost glowing from how clean it was. He smiled as he greeted me, pulling out a large binder and asking if I was again ready for judgment. I was immediately confused by his tone and choice of words, the strange feeling still lingering in my gut. He lays down the binder on the side table next to me, now covering my food tray. As he uncovers the front page, I jump in my seat. In a laminated cover is a page from my diary from when I was young. My brain wrestles with reality as he began reading it aloud. I try to interrupt what he's saying, but he just continues. I follow along the page with him. The youthful memories begin flooding in. My eyes begin to linger as he moves his index finger across the page as he reads. I glance up at his wristwatch, the hands on the clock frozen. That's when it all made sense. I'm not in a hospital. I'm in purgatory.